Welcome to the Build a Bar Chart Race Data Project Workshop.
Folks, we're going to kick it off tonight, making sure that you've got all the right things downloaded. You got everything that you need in order for you to get the most out of your time here today. So first and foremost, want to make sure that you've got the link to download the code and the slide deck that we're going to be going through tonight. It's going to be located at bit.ly/KDP_race. You've got that link right in front of you right now. Also, if you have not done so already, please sign up for a Kintone developer account and a Kintone subdomain. These two, signing up for these two things are going to give you the ability to spin up your own environment on Kintone and then follow along with us as you build. When you click on this download code and slide, you'll be taken to this page over here. And you'll click on download zip and it'll give you everything that you're looking for. If you just want to pick off specific things, you can pick off the slide deck, and you can pick off the specific scripts, or you can just get everything in a zip file all at once. Okay, and what about these developer accounts in this subdomain? Well, the developer account, just in order for you to do this successfully, make sure when you put in your full name and your email, you're using Chrome or Firefox. Do not use Safari, or repeat, do not use Safari, and make sure that your browser is set up to accept cookies. That way, you can successfully submit your form to the developer program. And then creating a Kintone subdomain, it's going to be this link over here. The environment that you create, which we call a subdomain, you'll be able to use lowercase numbers and hyphens. Other than that, no special characters. So just make sure that you can you're obeying those restrictions when you're creating your subdomain environment. And go ahead and fill out that form over here. Folks, what we're going to make today is going to be a bar chart. We call it like a bar chart race, because what we're doing is we're taking like categories over time. And we're seeing how they change over. We're taking categories and we're seeing how they change over time. So if this is what you're excited about, this is what you signed up for, I am happy to tell you, you are in the right place. If there's some other reason why you're here, I'd be interested in knowing it, and we'll just make sure you're taken care of. Okay, so without further ado, we bring you no server data visualization, build a bar chart race. Here we go. When I say we, by the way, what I'm talking about is the Kintone team. Who is the Kintone team? Kintone team made up of the folks from the Kintone developer program located in Tokyo. That's Genji and Will. Genji and Will, do you want to wave hello to the camera? They're going to be available during our entire time today. If you have any questions, you can shoot them over. They'll be watching the chat closely to make sure you get everything that you need. And Genji and Will, I just want to thank you guys for coming from the future into the past to help people learn how to build bar chart races in Kintone. Thank you. My name is Nim, and just a little bit about me, things I like to share. I started as a sales engineer at Kintone. First, I did a 3-month coding bootcamp called Hack Reactor. That's where I like to say I became an engineer. Like I began to think the way engineers think. I started at Kintone as a sales engineer. Now you might wonder, what is a sales engineer? Now a sales engineer is like if you need to buy software and you want to call up the company that you're considering doing business with, and you've got some sophisticated requirements, the person on the other end of the phone probably not going to be equipped to answer those questions, but they will bring on a technical expert on the line. That person is called a sales engineer, and they are like a trusted advisor to the sale with a deep technical background. I love that job. I like talking about that job because if you are a student or you're a software engineer and you're looking for a change, this is one career path that is not very well known, but I found incredibly rewarding. So much so that I ended up heading the team and then managing the team before shifting into this role that I currently now have called technical evangelist, where I create the possibility of a platform with folks like you who are technically savvy or who want to learn more technically. If you have any questions about sales engineering, technical evangelism, or non-traditional routes into the tech world, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or just go ahead and drop questions over here, and I'll be happy to be a resource for you. Today's workshop has two objectives. First, we're going to build a visualization project together using Kintone, and everyone's going to walk away with a project that they can work on. So if you are a front-end developer, you want to spend less time setting up your back-end, you want to spend more time concentrating on your UI or on some other parts of your project, this workshop's for you. And we've got 4 items on today's agenda. First, we're going to get the big picture. Why Kintone? How does it relate to data analytics? What can you do with it? Why are you here? Then we're going to get into the nitty gritty of how do you actually do that stuff on Kintone? How do you create apps on Kintone? What are they for? Why do we use them? How does it relate to data analytics? So in other words, how do we take whatever an app is and turn it into like a fancy schnazzy bar chart race? And then also, with our data, when our data is on Kintone, we can do lots of cool stuff, but what if our data is off of Kintone? How do we pipe data in from some other tool into Kintone to then do cool data stuff, data analytics, data visualization with it? That's what we're going to cover on today's agenda. So let's dive right in and talk about that big picture. So the first place to start is with the scope of traditional data analytics. So typically when you're talking about data visualizations, data analytics, really there's like there's sort of like a default understanding of what it means to do data analytics, making data understandable, making it look good, and then being able to generate useful insights from it. And that's pretty much where we park the car over there. Now, I'm going to push back on that. That's in our view here at Kintone, that is not the place to park the car when you're talking about data analytics. And the reason is because there's a lot more than just putting pretty pictures up that are easy to understand. If you're really committed, if you're genuinely committed, you've put in all of these resources to taking some, reams and reams of data and then making them easily available. And if you're genuinely committed to that mission of making data accessible in a way that makes a difference, then the thing to look at is to what extent do those insights that are generated from a typical data visualization, to what extent are those insights being shared, disseminated effectively? This is something that typically folks take for granted. We don't, and we want to point it out over here, because what's missing is typically some way of some approach to unified communication that's missing. What do I mean by that? Take a look at all the apps that are on this slide. How many of them do you use on a regular basis? Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, Google Calendar, Google Drive, Dropbox, Trello, Zoom. So, I mean, what multiple apps that talk about the data live in a different place than the data. Okay, so data lives in multiple places. Conversations about the data live in different, also separate places. And what we've got typically is scattered communication. So you're not sure where the conversation is happening. You need to remember it. And that the information is siloed. It's not being shared effectively. It's maybe being compartmentalized into various teams or departments. And we take issue with that. We take issue with that because what we've seen as possible is to put data and the conversations about the data all in one place. And that has a tremendous number of benefits to it that we're gonna talk about. So that's where we live, in this place where we create a platform that allows folks who are technical or even folks who are allergic to technology to build what we call apps that allow teams to easily share and collaborate on their data. And so then what happens is you're removing barriers to effective communication. You're removing barriers to action. One easy example of what it's like if on what I would consider to be like the more challenging end of the spectrum is if you are working in an environment where everyone's got a copy of an Excel spreadsheet local on their hard drive. They got to keep emailing this spreadsheet to each other. And then, it's very easy for things to fall out of sync. If you think this is something that's limited to the 1990s, I have some very upsetting news for you, which is this is still a very, very common way of handling data in 2020. What's possible when sharing data is easy is everyone's on the same page and all of that overhead just like disappears, winks out of existence. So the same thing with keeping your conversations accessible. When communicating is hard, you've got Slack and text message and Messenger and WhatsApp and Signal and email, and your conversations are scattered. But what would it be like if you could have the conversations about the data right there where the data is? What kind of friction would disappear over here? How might that impact your mission to make data insights accessible and easy? So that's really what's possible over here. And we took a snapshot of the page in Kintone. What you're seeing is how we've helped our customers remove that friction. So we've got this place where the data lives, which you can imagine to be like a form. Or another way to think about it is like this is a schema of a database. These are the fields, and these are the values of the fields. And then on the right hand side over here is simply like a thread that's local to a specific record, where you can tag other users on the platform in a very kind of social media-like experience, and you get to see, you're getting to loop the right people in at the right time, especially if you're moving an item through a workflow. Like typically, if your typical day-to-day business operations might involve handling expense reports or leads or marketing campaigns or many things that you track. And even from a data analytics perspective, looking at how you can monitor your bottlenecks, how you can gain visualizable insights on your day-to-day workflow or on the day-to-day workflow of the departments in your company. Kintone allows you to make sure that those people are tagged, the right people are tagged as an item moves through the workflow, and it's their turn to take action on it. This is something that we call process management. And this is one of the key benefits of our platform. To establish a workflow so that the right people are seeing the right things at the right time. Hiring is a great example. Legal document review is another, where you're assigning someone to take action on a record, and then they can take whatever action they need and pass it on accordingly. Another great benefit of Kintone is making sure that the people are seeing the things that they're supposed to see and no more and no less. There's incredibly granular permissions that can be configured on an app level, on a record level, or even on a field level, so that you're maintaining a secure environment to work with information, no matter how sensitive it is. Another benefit is, as a low-code and no-code platform, Kintone makes it so that even if you are a non-technical person, what I call allergic to technology, you can spin up an app really quickly and easily. And if you are a technical person, if you're a developer, you can enhance your apps with JavaScript so that they are customizable to more sophisticated use cases. All right, so we're talking about apps. What do we mean exactly when we talk about an app? And what I'd like you to imagine is that an app is like a spreadsheet in a workbook or a table in a database, only with more benefits, benefits that we'll get into soon. And apps are super easy to create, and this is part of the appeal of making this kind of structure accessible to people who ordinarily would never have been able to touch this because it was just too far out of their comfort zone. With Kintone, you can create apps or modify apps by dragging and dropping fields into and out of the canvas. And then you can also customize those apps, again, this is if you're more technical, with client-side JavaScript. And all of this put together is really about fulfilling the promise of data analytics, right? Gaining meaningful insights about the data that then become quickly operationalized. You're combining the data, you're combining the communication about the data, to one place where you then get insights and then you can take action. So that's the big picture over here. That's why us at Kintone, we at Kintone are talking to you about the benefits of our platform for data analytics. And so how can you as a developer or as somebody who is definitely on the technical end of the spectrum, how does this matter to you? How can you contribute? So there are generally two ways that developers can contribute. And the first is in a command center sense. So with Kintone, you can use your knowledge of coding to create a custom look and feel, and then integrate with third-party web applications to pull data onto the platform or push data out of the platform. So you've got like your operations center, the place where you and your people live in the day-to-day and do work in the day-to-day, and to have it all be right there, easily available at people's fingertips. So command center, that's what I mean by command center, like that place where people go, that's like the hub for their work and for their communication. The second is enhancements. So building customizations that might be specific to a company, or building and sharing packaged extensions. So let's drill down a little bit so you get a sense of what's possible over here. When we talk about creating a custom look and feel, this is what we're talking about. There's room for you to create pretty much any kind of client-side JavaScript you want. Hook in some HTML, some CSS. On the left-hand side, you see this is a previous kind of chart that we built called a bubble cloud. On the right-hand side, when we say like, Eddie, you can build anything, we're not joking. This is Space Invaders that Will, who's with us today. Will, can you go ahead and say hi? Will built this just as a demo for what you can put into Kintone. So here's like a fully run Space Invaders clone that's being played inside of Kintone. When it comes to integrating with third-party applications, you can have your business platforms talk with Kintone. So using Kintone's REST API to handle typical CRUD operations, whether you're using tools like Slack or HubSpot or Zendesk. You can even use what I call like app glue, like a Zapier or a Microsoft Power Apps Automate to facilitate communication between Kintone and other third-party apps. And in addition to pushing and pulling information onto and out of Kintone, Kintone also has outbound webhooks that are triggered on certain events, creating records, updating records, deleting records, moving records along in a workflow, or commenting on a record, and then pushing that data out to some other tool. So you can then create really neat automated workflows that can facilitate people's day-to-day experience of work, and especially on a platform that can handle more sophisticated data visualizations. And of course, you've got ways of pushing that information into Kintone securely with API tokens, so that, again, you've got your access controlled in the right way. What's neat for developers is that you can build these kind of enhancements, and then you can package them with JavaScript or CSS, so that business users, again, folks who are allergic to technology, can install and configure them for themselves. So where does this leave you? Well, if you're here to learn and learning about data analytics, learning about Kintone, this is part of like a broader project for you in developing yourself and furthering your career, then here are some suggestions for you. Build some projects, share them with the community, learn some new JavaScript tricks, contribute to tech blogs. Like, these are all low-hanging fruit for how you can continue your learning. Now, if your project is, hey, I want to make money with this, then here are some ideas: creating and selling Kintone extensions, doing business consultation with firms to achieve their business goals, which again you can package with data visualizations and this this process management, this third party customization with third-party web applications, so that you're building like a command center for people. These are all really cool options for you, and to assist lots and lots of companies who could benefit from this kind of work and could reward you, appropriately for that visioning and that high level value that you can provide them. Okay, now you came here because you're here for no server data visualization, and we have not yet talked about data visualization. So how is this related to building projects with no servers? Well, first, with Kintone, you can let Kintone become your server running your database. You don't have to worry about setting something up and keeping it alive. You can just skip that part. And then that lets you focus on creating your databases with a GUI. That's something you can spin up really quick too. And then that allows you to concentrate on your more interesting front-end work or on solving harder problems. There are tons and tons and tons of problems out there. And if we can make some of them easier to solve, that means you can spend more time on the more valuable problems, which is a key value proposition that Kintone can offer, making it really quick for you to spin up stuff that would otherwise take much longer. Okay, that's the big picture, folks. Let's go into creating a Kintone app. Again, I want you to think of when we say Kintone app, I want you to think of a spreadsheet in a workbook or a table in a database. So some examples of Kintone apps might be a board game database or a company FAQ, or maybe like a list of expense reports or invoices or leads, employee databases, lots of different options. What we're going to do today is we're gonna go over the steps to building an app. So I'll go over those steps first. And then what we'll do is we'll give you some time we'll turn the time over to you to go ahead and build that app as an exercise. So again, follow along with me and then we'll give you some time for you to build. If you have not yet set up your Kintone environment, now is the time to do so. If you proceed past here, and do not have your Kintone environment set up, you will not be able to follow along with us. No, you'll be able to follow along with us, but you won't be able to take action on your computer to create something of your own. This is a required step. So please do not use Safari, use Chrome or Firefox, go to that website, accept the cookies and sign up, and then create a Kintone subdomain. You'll click on this link, don't use any special characters, and then check your email. From time to time, people will see this email in their spam folder or their promotions folder. It's very rare, but it has happened before. So after you fill out those, two forms, if you have not yet logged into your Kintone environment, check your email. You're going to look for an email that says "Welcome to Kintone, one more step to developer license." And then you'll activate your developer license. You'll log on to your subdomain, which will be https:// and then whatever your subdomain was, whatever string you put in over there, .kintone.com. At which point you will log in and you'll set up your initial password. Once you log in, you'll be taken to this page where you can click through to the administration or to Kintone. Click on the Kintone button. And what we're going to do is we're going to create our first app. Our first, again, remember, a spreadsheet in a workbook or a table in a database, only with a lot more benefits. So you'll see this portal. This is the first page that you see after you've logged in. This is the first place that you or your team would see valuable information. This page will tell you where to go, what's important, what requires your immediate attention, what typically requires your attention. You can set up this page that will put all of that front and center. What we're going to do is create our first app, and to do that, we're going to go into this section over here called Apps. We're going to click on this plus sign in the circle, and that's going to take us to this page, what we call the Kintone Marketplace. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an app from scratch. So you'll click on Create an App from Scratch. When you create an app from scratch, you'll be taken to a page we call our form builder, which has two parts to it. One is the canvas, where you'll drag and drop fields. And the other is the field list. What you're going to do is you're going to, well, we're going to drag and drop some fields into here, but before we do that, we want to change the name of this app. It'll say new app, you'll tap on new app, and you'll change new app to board game DB, just like that, okay? We'll change the name to board game DB, and then go ahead and drag and drop a text field from the field list into the canvas, okay? Now, what we're gonna do is, once you've dragged and dropped that text field onto the canvas, when you hover over the field, there's a settings icon, this little gear wheel on the top right-hand corner of that field. Click on it and it will take you to the settings for that field. Now we wanna make some brief changes over here. One is we're gonna change text to name, okay? And then we're gonna hit save. Once we do that, we're gonna do the same thing with a drop-down field. You're going to drag and drop a drop-down field from the left-hand side from that field list onto the canvas. And once you do that, you'll go to the field settings as well. So you'll hover over that drop-down on the top right corner of that field. There's a gear wheel. You'll click on that gear wheel, and you'll be taken to this drop-down settings page. From here, we're going to make a few changes. First, we're going to change the name of the field from drop-down to type. Then we're going to change the options. So sample 1 and sample 2, we're going to replace that with abstract and area control. These are two different types of board games. And then finally, we'll add a new option for the dropdown. We're going to click on that small plus sign in the blue next to one of these options. There will be another dropdown option that will be revealed. We'll change it to drafting, and then we'll hit save. All right, that's it. That's how we make those changes to our field settings. And I want to just point one thing out to you that's going to be important to remember, which is something that we call field codes. You see, those names that you change, those are useful for people who are interacting with Kintone directly in the Kintone GUI. We're on Kintone.com, who are seeing the names of these fields. But if you're doing any kind of coding, you need to guarantee that the field has its own unique name. And that's what the field codes are for. These field codes are guaranteed to be unique. Later on, we're going to refer to these field codes when we use the data in some of these fields in our code. So there will be a time, in about an hour from now, when I'll say, hey, do you remember we talked about field codes? This is where they show up in the code. And I just want you to remember this is what we were talking about. Once you've dragged and dropped the text field and the drop-down field, and you've made the appropriate changes, you'll click on Activate App to deploy it. This is going to move it from what we'll call the development environment into production. You can always come back and you can make changes, stage your changes, and update your changes later. Activate App is going to be the first button that you'll click, that blue button, in order to populate the app. Now, when you click on Activate App, you might need to wait a few moments, and then you'll be brought back to the portal. And you'll see we have our first app ever created. It's the Board Game DB app in our portal right there, front and center. Click on it. Click on it. We're going to do something cool with it. We're going to go into it. And when you go into it, you'll see that it's blank. So congratulations, you've made your first Kintone app. This is exactly what you're expecting. You essentially created the database here by dragging and dropping some fields. By turning it, essentially, you made it into a form. And now we populate it with data. Now, fully populated, what you would expect an app to look like is something like this. All of the data that you added to the app is there, front and center. On the right-hand side, there are two buttons that are going to be useful for you to know. The first is that plus sign, which will let you or any users with the right permission add new data. And then that second button, that gear wheel on the top right-hand side, those are the app's settings. That'll bring us back to that form builder, as well as many of these other benefits that I've been alluding to. And on the left-hand side, if you want to access the details of this, of any specific record, you'll click on that blue thumbnail on the left-hand side, and that's how we will drill down into a specific record. Okay, so what did we do so far? We logged into Kintone, we added an app from scratch, we dragged and dropped a text field and a drop-down field and made some changes to them, and then we hit Activate App. We're gonna get to part 3, displaying amCharts on Kintone. This is where we're going to get into the meat of the thing. So, what is amCharts? amCharts is a data visualization library. You may be familiar with other libraries like D3. amCharts is in that realm. amCharts, a bunch of different kinds of charts. They all look pretty neat. And typically, the way that you would use amCharts in any kind of a front-end environment would be essentially you need 3 places. The first place is in your HTML, where you are creating some kind of a div that then when you, in your JavaScript, you execute the script for the library. You then ultimately need to hook some behavior into that div. Some behavior like defining the chart and instantiating it. And separate from that, you also need to define your data. So this is how it would typically go in a front-end environment. But what's neat is on Kintone, a lot of that gets simplified. So you don't need to handle HTML. In Kintone, there's a method that's exposed in the API that'll allow you to hook into specific parts of the Kintone, pages. You won't need a script tag because you'll be pointing to the script location via configuration. You will need to define, you will need to instantiate the chart, and then the data definitions, those are just going to be the Kintone records. Simplifies things. So what we're going to do next, we're going to create a new app from a CSV file, and then we're going to add the JavaScript to the app so that we can do the kind of data visualization that we're looking at over here. This is the steps for creating the customization on Kintone. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that CSV file, we're going to turn it into an app. And then what we're going to do is, remember I said how an app is like a spreadsheet and a workbook or a table and a database, but with more benefits? Well, one of those benefits is we can add libraries to the app, and then we can also add additional custom JavaScript. Those are all, those are just some of those benefits. We'll do that stuff, we'll redeploy the Kintone app, and then we'll enjoy the magic. Let's start with the CSV. If you have not already gotten the CSV, this is the place to go get it. Get this CSV, and then we're going to create an app with it. You're going to click on that plus sign on that portal that we saw earlier today. You'll be taken to the marketplace, which you saw earlier today, but this is where the script changes. Instead of clicking create app from scratch, you're going to click create from CSV. You're going to click create from CSV. Click on create from CSV, and you'll be taken to our conversion wizard. Okay, the first thing that they're going to do, they're going to say, welcome, basically, welcome to the wizard. This is, you're going to create an app from a CSV file. And then and then they say, make sure that these conditions are filled. They need to be filled in order for the file to work as expected. In other words, they're giving you 4 conditions to make sure that you've scrubbed the data appropriately and formatted it appropriately so that it'll go into Kintone without any trouble. Fortunately for you, we did all that scrubbing. You don't need to worry about it. You can just check all or individually check off those checkboxes, and then you'll continue this button called continue to the upload screen will turn blue. You'll click on it, and then we'll be taken to the screen where we will actually do the CSV import. You'll browse, you'll find that file. As soon as you upload that file, you'll be taken to, this page will open up. And it'll give you some sample data that indicates that this spreadsheet is being imported the way that you're expecting. You'll scroll down and notice that there is a field mapping portion. So this is just to make sure that the the column names of that CSV will become field names. And we need to make sure that the type of field is correct. So your year is going to be a number, the manufacturer is going to be a dropdown, and the phone sold is going to be a number. Once you've got all of that down pat, click convert. And now we'll move to the next portion, adding the libraries to the apps. So if you clicked convert, you might wait a few seconds. The next page that you'll see will be the portal again, and then you'll see a new app, front and center. Click on it. And let's change the app settings. On the right-hand side of the page, click on the gear wheel. Now actually, before you click on the gear wheel, notice, the first time that we created an app, the data was empty and the schema was there. Now, since we've imported from a CSV, we've basically hit two birds with one stone. We have created the schema and uploaded the data at the same time. We have a conveniently labeled alert over here telling us the file is imported successfully. You can X that out if you'd like. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on the app settings. Now, actually, you can do this in two different ways. One way you can do it is by clicking on this little caret over here, and you'll see a drop down. And you're going to proceed to the app settings part of the dropdown, and you're going to find JavaScript and CSS customization. Or you can click on this gear wheel, which is what we're going to do. You click on the gear wheel, you'll be taken to this familiar page. Remember, this is the form builder. Cool, we've got a form builder, but actually there's a whole bunch more functionality behind the scenes that we haven't even talked about yet. You'll see there are 4 tabs over here: views, graphs, and app settings. These are the 3 that we haven't looked at yet. You're going to click on app settings. And when you do, you'll see 3 columns. In the second column, the middle column, second item down, JavaScript and CSS customization. Click on it. And when you do, you'll be taken to a page where we will start to configure the libraries that are going to be associated with this app. What we're going to do is we're going to add 3 links. We're going to add references to the locations on the internet where these libraries live. So you're going to add link, then you're going to click add link, then you're going to click add link. You're going to do this 3 times, and you're going to copy and paste these links into your 3 links in the place where underneath upload JavaScript for PC. We've linked to existing libraries that live somewhere else. Now we're going to add a custom JavaScript file. And this is where we're going to find it. Back in that gist, same place where you downloaded the CSV, same place where you downloaded the slide deck. Go ahead and download this script, 03_script.js. And once you've saved that script, what we're going to do this time in the JavaScript and CSS customization screen in Kintone, we added a link, we added a link, we added a link. Now we're going to add a file. We're going to add a file. We add the file of the thing we just downloaded, which was 03_script.js. And then, and only then, after we've got these 4 libraries, these 4 files, and we've got them in this particular order, the order matters over here, then and only then it's saved. Now we're going to redeploy the Kintone app. So what we've done is we've made some changes. We're going to push those changes to production. Click on Update App. And this is what you should see. Which is pretty neat. Total dopamine hit over here. And actually it's kind of nice to just like zone out for a little while. This is how you'll know that your work was done successfully. Okay, turning it over to you. At this point, go ahead, follow these steps, begin looking through the code. which is, I know, like the juice of what you're here for. So let's start by talking about the files that we configured to run with this JavaScript and CSS customization page. So, excuse me, that first file core, this is what's needed in order to run everything on amCharts. Charts.js, this is the library for creating charts, and then animated.js is a theme which provides for smooth transitions, makes things look better. Now, let's go into 03_script.js. The first thing that we see is we're actually, this whole script going to be inside an immediately invoked function expression. So what that means is all of your code is scoped to this function, and there's nothing that's going to leak out into the global environment. So that's how we handle that question. You'll notice there's this Kintone object that's got an events object on it, kintone.events.on. So Kintone exposes its own events in the loading of a page. And the reason why we do that is you might have some behavior that needs to kick off at certain times. But if you're using a native browser load events, they might not sync properly to when you want certain things to be ready in Kintone. So we solved that problem by having by suggesting as a best practice that you hook your code into these Kintone events. This event is called app.record.index.show, and what it really means is when you are on the record list, when the record list appears, do this. And so what is it that we're doing? Well, we are grabbing a div. It's a div in a specific place. Actually, you can see it right over here in this record list. This is the div area. It's called the header space element. And we got it by using a native Kintone method called getHeaderSpaceElement. Real creative. And we've assigned it to the variable space div, and we're going to start styling space div and giving it margins and borders and other good stuff. A little bit lower than that, we'll start creating the instance of the chart. So these are from the chart libraries. am4.core, use theme. We're going to create, this says we're going to create an XY chart. We're going to hook it into space div, and we're going to give it some padding. Now, what we are doing behind the scenes is we're going to take the stuff that is appearing to you as a Kintone record, and we are going to turn it into a JSON object so that the bar chart race chart can read the data and do something with it. So you might notice that we're dealing with millions of records over here. We need some way of telling the computer that when we're in the thousands, we are using a K. When we are 3 orders of magnitude higher than that, we're going to use an M. And when we're 3 orders of magnitude higher than that, we're going to use a B. So this, anything that says chart, by the way, off of the chart object, this is coming from amCharts. This is a way of making sure that your number prefixes are formatted. It says prefixes, but these are typically actually number suffixes. Great name. Okay, now we're going to start formatting the graph. We're going to create a label. We're going to give it the right kind of size. We're going to position it in a place where it doesn't overlap anything. And then we're going to set the speed of the race. So every 4 seconds, is our step. And then we're going to begin specifying our axes. So there's the category axis, which is the y-axis, which is going to be by manufacturer. And we want to be able to specify the position of the category axis. And then with the x-axis, we're going to set, this is the value axis, the number of phones sold. Oh, Will, thank you for calling out. Small correction, we're not dealing with millions of records. We're dealing with number of values that are in the millions. Thanks, Will. Yeah, it's very distinct from what I communicated. Thanks for calling that out. Millions of phones. So over here, this is the value axis, millions of phones. And we're setting up these settings basically tell us what our minimum is and how far we go and what the change looks like. And then we're going to add the columns. So this is where we specify that the y-axis is the manufacturer, the x-axis is value, what the step duration is, the tooltip text, various, again, lots of different configurable settings for the parameters for the chart. And then display the phone sold values on the right edge of the bars, which is here is what we're talking about. That as these bars go up, this number persists along the leading edge of these bars. Yep, there we go. And we've got some text, some text alignment, and we're disabling the zoom out button. Some of the amCharts graphs, they make like a map, for example. It makes sense to have a button that'll allow you to zoom in or out of the map. What we've done is we've turned that off. And then we're over here, we're changing the starting label, the year. We're giving some instructions about under what conditions the interval should or the race should start and stop. And then we've got a function over here called next year, which tells the function how to behave when the year changes. We go to 2005 or 2006. Now, some of these phones are only manufactured, like some of these entrants into the market, like Apple, for example, they're not, the iPhone wasn't released in the market in 2005 or 2006. So we need some way to hide manufacturers that didn't exist at that, excuse me, didn't exist at that time, which will concurrently make the make the size of the manufacturers that are there bigger. Let me rephrase that. Imagine we've got a limited amount of space and we've got 10 manufacturers who are occupying that space. The size of each bar is going to be smaller than if there were 3 manufacturers in the space. So we need some way to handle the fact that if you haven't made a phone yet, you're not even going to show up. And if you have made a phone, you're going to take up more space. So that's essentially what these functions and some of the following work is going to do, as well as handle the behavior for basically rendering the chart. And this is what I'm talking about. Category axis.zoom is what I'm talking about, the shrinking or the growing of the chart of the manufacturer bar based on how many other manufacturer bars there are. If you're interested in doing a deep dive on this, I recommend downloading the code and just kind of playing the different settings and see how that impacts the display of the chart. All right, so we talked about the chart display. Now we want to talk about making a REST API call. So what we want to do is we want to get all of the data and then do something with it. So this API call is made to get all of our records. And then when, and then we're going to do something with it. And then also this series object, this is associated with the chart. So when the chart says initted, it means initialized. I did not come up with the name of that event. So when this series is initialized, then begin. Now, let's look at what we do when we get the records. So what we do is we are creating a specially We're essentially, we're handcrafting a JSON object that has like the right kind of nested format so that we can sensibly talk about what happens year over year. In 2004, these manufacturers had all of these numbers. In 2005, the manufacturers had all of these numbers. And so what you're seeing over here is code that is designed to create that JSON object. Now, for those of you who are like eagle eye JavaScript readers, you might notice there's a for each statement over here, as well as a return statement. And it's just an opportunity for you to geek out about JavaScript a little bit. So a for each statement never returns anything. It is not a pure function. We're using the return statement over here to break out of this record as the for each statement traverses the array without running this piece of code over here. Let me ask our JavaScript heroes on our call tonight. What are some alternatives to using for each and return under normal, what I'll call like typical circumstances? We're in cocktail hour territory. So if you don't know the answer to this, that's perfectly okay. This code runs perfectly fine. This is just a bonus for you who are curious about how the intricacies of JavaScript. Anybody want to take this one? You can go ahead and drop your answer in the chat, or you can unmute yourself.
Are you asking about like what exactly, what are some other functions you can use besides for each, like map or filter or something like that?
That's right. Yeah, you answered the question. We can use map, we can use filter. You could even use reduce over here if you've got a particularly thorny or intricate way of building out an object that has like some kind of like intricate conditional, like intricate behavior associated with building the object.
So I got a question for you, I guess. Does you know, the Kintone JavaScript, does it support ES6?
Yes.
Or do you have to write it in pretty much ES5 first?
I believe we support ES6. I don't. Will or Genji, can you sanity check me over here? I'm pretty like yes, we support ES6, but for some reason I'm hesitating.
Yes. It's ES5. But we have tutorials where we sort of package it in so you can write it in ES6 formats.
Oh, so okay. Are we using Webpack and basically like we're using Babel to like convert?
Yeah, if you want to write it in the ES6 format, yeah, we have tutorials for that for doing that. But it's because it basically follows the standards that the browsers are using at the moment. So it's basically at ES5.
VJ, if I'm remembering correctly, we also support Internet Explorer 11, and that might be the reason why we don't.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
I think that's the only drawback. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking like, because I mean, like to me, like this kind of reminds me of like a Lambda function on AWS or something where you write in pretty much ES5 first. But I see what a lot of people do is kind of like, you know, they'll write their code on their local computer, right? And then that kind of goes, the only reason I thought of this was because you were talking about like different types of, you know, methods that you could support, like filter, map, and reduce and all that. And I was thinking, you know, if I wrote some of my more advanced JavaScript functions, I'd probably, you know, do exactly what you're saying, like either write it for ES5 straight or just like use Babel or something, Webpack, and then burn it down for ES5. You guys could definitely do that on the back end too. I mean, you could just probably like you know, take this as the text or whatever, and then just burn it down to ES5 so that when it gets minified or whatever on the next page or whatever, it is ES5. I don't know. You could add that option, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries.
Anybody else want to chime in? That was a great. One of the things I really love about delivering these workshops is, you know, we get these cool. We get to go on these cool tangents every once in a while. One thing I do want to call out, which is like front and center on this page, is you'll notice these red arrows go to what are these? Drop underscore down, number underscore 0. Now, remember about an hour ago, I said each field has a unique field code, and that's represented in the code. So what we've done is these are places where we are referring to the values of the field, and we need to refer to the fields by their field codes inside of the code. So that's what these things are. And so when we push the data through that function, we're going to come up with an object, a JSON object that looks like this on the left-hand side. And then we're going to receive a response. When we make our get call, we're going to receive a response that looks like this. Folks, any questions? All right, part 4, calling REST APIs from Kintone. So far, think about where we are in this journey. We talked about the big picture understanding of data analytics and how Kintone fits in. If what you're interested in is making insights actionable and then removing the friction to sharing those insights and making them actionable for more people. Then we started learning how to use Kintone, building some apps. We uploaded some data in from a CSV and then created some data visualizations. But wouldn't it be great if we could get data from APIs or from, in this case, public APIs? Like, what if we didn't have a convenient CSV properly formatted on hand, ready to import? So typically, if you're going to make REST API calls, they're done from a server, right? Like you go to, let's say, google.com, you type something in, you hit enter. Google does a whole bunch of wizardry on their side, and then present you with a list of search engine results pages, right? But you don't run that code on your machine, on your computer, that crunches data and spits out search engine results. Google does that. So there are a lot of reasons why that kind of code doesn't run on your browser. Some of them are for security reasons, some of them are for intellectual property reasons. But what you should understand is that when you are calling other computers, you are typically limited in certain ways from doing it from your browser. You typically have a server intermediate on your behalf. And when you try to call a server from your browser, from your client, you'll often run into something called a CORS error. CORS stands for cross-origin resource sharing. So it's like there you are at one it's basically like there you are at one website asking for information from another website. And there are cases where it is a vulnerability, so it is typically flagged as an error and not allowed. Here's an example of trying to run some code on Google that interacts with, like, pulls information or interacts with a different website than the one that we're on. In this case, we are pulling we're on Google, pulling a comic from XKCD. And what you'll see over here is this error. No access control allow origin header is present. And so we have what's called it's called cross origin resource here. No cores. Now the reason why we're bringing this up is because we uploaded code into Kintone. You uploaded code into Kintone. You uploaded that special that custom file, and then what happens is that file runs on your browser when you get into the record list. Kintone doesn't run that file on Kintone. Kintone lets you run that file on your browser. That's called client-side JavaScript coding. And it's fine for many purposes, and runs into trouble when you're running code on the client side, trying to call some server that is not that does not match with the website you're currently on. And so what Kintone does is it exposes a method that allows it to make requests to those other websites on your behalf. It allows it to make requests on your behalf to these other APIs, these other endpoints. And so using this method called Kintone.proxy, you tell Kintone, I want to go to this website, I want this information, I'm sending this kind of request, this is the data I'm expecting back, and then do the following stuff with it. And then when Kintone gets to this part of your code, it'll make the API call on your behalf before returning the data to the client side. So that in that way you get to avoid cores. Here's an example of running the XKCD get comic script from Kintone. We're using the Kintone.proxy method, and we're saying get this comics image. And you see, in fact, this is exactly what it looks like when you get that. Now, the benefits of Kintone.proxy are it returns a promise object, which is all of the hype these days. It can be used on all browsers that Kintone is compatible with, including, you guessed it, our old friend, Internet Explorer. And the benefit of using this Kintone.proxy is you get to skip cores errors. So do you all have any questions about that? That's how you would be piping data into Kintone or interacting with API endpoints outside of Kintone, even though you are running code on the client side. Okay. Any questions, comments? Cool. So let's wrap. We did 4 things today. First, we got the big picture. Okay, what is Kintone? Kintone's a no-code, low-code cloud platform. Well, what does that mean to me? Well, you can do a whole bunch of stuff with it if you're interested in learning, if you're interested in creating revenue, if you're interested in like a wall-to-wall platform for effectively disseminating data visualization, actionable insights. That's what Kintone's for. Then we created our first Kintone app. We talked about essentially creating databases with no coding, doing it quickly and easily. If you're highly technical, this stuff goes by real fast. You get to save a lot of time. If you're not technical at all, what it does is it makes something accessible that just wasn't accessible before. You had no idea how to do it and you need to rely on somebody else. And then you can customize Kintone apps with JavaScript. So we started to do that in section 3, where we linked to 3 libraries, and then we uploaded our own code, and then we ran that code, and then interacted with the data that was stored in the Kintone apps to provide us with. And then finally, just now, a few moments ago, we went over how you would conceptually go about piping data, how you would go about interacting with other REST API endpoints that could help you pipe data into or out of Kintone using that Kintone proxy method. And that'll allow you to bypass that cross-origin resource sharing errors. So overall, why would you use Kintone for your projects? Remember, this is a serverless setup from your perspective. There's no need to set up or maintain a server. You've got your front end can use the data that's in Kintone as your database. You can call other third-party web applications from your front end and avoid cores, and you can easily create databases with the GUI. You might be thinking, well, what are some things that I could do next? Want to try out some more data visualization? I encourage you to check out more of the charts that are on amCharts. They've got some really, really beautiful visualizations over there. Really some stunning stuff. If you want to create projects on Kintone, you want to retrieve and store data from public APIs, there's a whole freaking list of public APIs available at this GitHub link. And if you want to use Kintone as a backend and retrieve data via Kintone's REST API, we've got a tutorial where you can use a Node.js to call Kintone's REST API. There's a link right over there. What if you're stuck? We've got a lively community on our Kintone developer community forum. It's frequently checked and you'll get answers very quickly. We also have Stack Overflow where you can reach out and post questions or comments about Kintone. I just want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. I want to thank you for learning with us. If you're a return player, I want to thank you for having so much fun with us that you decided to come back. There's a lot of other places, a lot of things you could have done with your evening, and you chose to spend it with us. And as the person who has been sharing with you this information and being with you for the last hour and 48 minutes, I just want you to know I don't take that for granted. Turning it over to Christine.
Thanks. Thanks for the great presentation, Nim. I wanted to thank our community partners out there. So School 42, General Assembly, Front End Mentors. But I just wanted to thank you everyone for sharing, JavaScript LA for sharing as well. We appreciate that.